Good evening. Welcome to the overnight edition of From Day One. Art Bell and Richard Hoagland are back. So, without further ado, let's have them talk about the moon as we rock through Dominion. Oh, hold on. And of course, knowing me, I had to screw it up. Just a second.
This is Dark Matter with your host, Art Bell. Now, here's Art Extra.
We're going to have media which very shortly are going to be immortal by any civilization standard. And there's going to be a zillion copies of everything ever done. Which means it's not we have to find a centralized library, Art. All we have to do is find one of their computers that still works.
That's right.
And on the moon, it's going to be duck soup because nothing has happened on the moon for millions and millions and millions of years. And certainly if you get down deep enough underground, nothing has disturbed it. So, yeah, a human expedition that goes and looks for the libraries will eventually find them. And, of course, to short-circuit this around, my feeling is that Kennedy's real reason for sending our guys to the moon was to find the archives and bring it back and put it to benefit for all mankind, and that's why they killed him. And the data I have that supports that is that 12 days after he agreed to go there with Khrushchev, they bumped him off, and then they put Khrushchev under house arrest, and he died a broken man sitting on a rocker on his porch when the world went nuts into a huge spiral of new weapons development.
Yes, it did.
And I know that he and Kennedy were in touch because Ted Sorensen, who was almost like Kennedy's spiritual soul brother. They were like brothers. They thought the same. They talked the same. They wrote the same. They had the same philosophy. Without Sorensen, Kennedy would not have been the genius orator that he was.
All right, here's the rub that I see, Richard.
Well, can I finish my point?
I guess, yeah, go ahead.
In Sorensen's book called Counselor, he describes how from the day JFK walked into the Oval Office, he would give Sorensen an envelope with a letter for Khrushchev, separate from state, separate from the DOD, really separate from the CIA.
Yes.
Ted would walk down into the middle of Washington, D.C., down Pennsylvania Avenue. He'd stand in a corner, and a guy from the KGB would come up to him with a folded copy of the Washington Post.
But we don't know what was in this, right?
Yes, we do.
How do we know?
Because Sorensen reports it in his book.
And he says what was in it.
From day one, he was trying to get Khrushchev to go to the moon with the United States.
Okay.
And when Khrushchev finally told his son in the garden of their dacha outside Moscow in late fall of 1963, I've decided I can trust this man. It was after the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right.
12 days later, Kennedy was killed. Lyndon Johnson and the chief, I forget who the congressman was in the House, introduced legislation forbidding the United States from cooperating with the Soviet Union in going to the moon.
Well, you weave a fascinating possibility.
It's data.
Here's what I want to say, Richard. If this is proven true, if it somehow, in any way, ends up suggesting to the world that the source of life on Earth is other than as written in the good book, we've got problems.
You mean intelligent life?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have problems anyway. Because science is, look, the way I
Those are big ones. Those are really big ones.
You've got JC calls you all the time. If JC were confronted tomorrow with evidence of a lunar civilization, do you think it would matter? Do you think it would matter a whit to him?
No.
Do you think he would pay attention?
No, he would banish them to boiling pits of sewage.
Yeah, sewage, right. And he would refuse to acknowledge the existence of the information. My feeling for decades, and I think this is what Brookings was saying, is that those people will wrap themselves in a bubble inside an enigma, inside a freezer, and they will totally be unfazed by this because their life continues regardless of the facts of science that would intrude on their view of the universe. What would really happen is that the smart people on the planet would seize the opportunity to break out of the prison and the shackles we're currently in. They would take these technologies, put them to use to free people from being demeaning slaves and become, rulers of their own destiny. They would stop despoiling the earth, contaminating the planet, ruining the nest.
Maybe.
Well,
technologies
I'm talking about are the same technologies you were talking about with Stephen the other night.
If Genesis was no longer true in the minds of those who looked at the evidence, there'd be big trouble, Richard. Big trouble.
I don't agree.
In other words,
that is a philosophical perspective, and we have a right to disagree. See, this is how Brookings used this as a club to basically threaten everybody in this report.
Well, let's talk about clubs for a second. How big a club would that be? That would mean, to a lot of people, Genesis, wrong, new information, right. No afterlife, no heaven, no hell, no punishment for the evil.
Why do the two go hand in hand?
Well, you're hitting the underpinnings of religion, Richard, really hard when you say life didn't originate. Look, if Genesis goes, a lot goes.
Or Genesis gets reinterpreted, and my feeling is those who are fundamentally religious will continue to believe what they want to believe, data notwithstanding, and the rest of us can move on to create a real civilization on this planet. Can I go back?
Well, maybe we need a new assessment of what would happen. Maybe we need a new Brookings.
Yeah. Oh, that would be fantastic. But remember, a few minutes ago I talked about the report from Iron Mountain.
Yes, sir.
Which was commissioned under Kennedy as an alternative to what he foresaw as a perpetual state of war on planet Earth. And he tasked certain people, and there's huge controversy over, was the study that came out real? Was it satire? The way you dismiss real stuff is you make fun of it, and nobody believes it.
Mm-hmm.
Given all the things that report from Iron Mountain, which Robin has done numerous shows on, with extraordinary reception by our audience, because they're dumbfounded that all of the things forecast in that report, which was published in the early 60s, have come true, including the idea of the need to perpetuate perpetual war on Earth to maintain control in the absence of peace that would create such uncertainties and such depression in the economy that civilization itself would crumble. Sounds awfully lot like the fear porn of Brookings.
We may have turned the corner on that one.
We'll
wait and see how Syria turns out.
Yeah, exactly. One of their possibilities that they offered as an alternative to endless war, a la Orwell, was one of their possibilities that they offered as an alternative to endless war, a la Orwell, was a huge space program that would basically have the budget of the Pentagon. I mean, look, NASA spends, I'm going to use round numbers now, about $16 billion a year. The Pentagon is up in the hundreds of billions a year.
Good point.
NASA's down in the noise. People seem to think NASA has all the money in the world. No, they have a pittance of what we spend on better ways to kill people. Cruise missiles, stealth drones.
I'm with you all the way. I know. You're right. The disparity and the spending is obvious.
What the report from Iron Mountain said was, one way to move from a war economy, which has all kinds of ancillary benefits. We've used a few thousand people here and there in some wars, but frankly, society is so big, it needs the economy, it needs the technological development, it needs all the stimulus. We can live with that.
Mm-hmm.
The only alternative they propose that might counter that would be a super big Pentagon-sized budget space program.
I'd love to see it.
I would too. But this was formulated before NASA's first missions into the solar system and to the moon. Now, of course, if the objective of the controllers is control, you can't possibly have a big unlimited space program because, my God, you can't control it. They'll find out what's really out there. They'll find out their real history. They'll find out all the incredible technologies that make oil and all the other control mechanisms obsolete. Holy cow, we can't have that. So what are we seeing from NASA? We've seen a long, slow attrition down to death.
Yes, indeed. All right, so being in the middle of this attrition, it's my view, Richard, that a NASA guy or gal would say, oh my God, if, our agency is going to hell in a handbasket, if we can get information out to the public and the world like this, we're going to get all the money that's going into those bombs and cruise missiles, and we're going to be able to go to Mars, we're going to be able to go to the moon and well beyond because we've proven there's a reason to do it, and so they'd want to release the information.
That's a very linear view that if everything else was equal, I would say you're probably right. And that's been one of the biggest criticisms of our model for decades. This would be a gold card for NASA. Why the hell don't they do it?
Right.
Which means there must be a bigger counterforce that keeps them from doing it. Oh, have I mentioned the bodies? Have I mentioned the various NASA personnel who have shown up dead, really, really, really dead in various places over the last 30, 40 years?
Not only so dead you can be, but yes, go ahead. I mean, haven't been that many.
It doesn't have to, it has to be the right people, or in this case, the wrong people, at the wrong place at the wrong time, up to and including some astronauts. Like Pete Conrad years ago, he was the commander of Apollo 12 that took the pictures that are picture number 3, corroborates the geometry taken by surveyor. A few years ago, Pete Conrad, who was very much into space industrialization, he was one of those guys who couldn't figure out why we hadn't aggressively taken advantage of all the amazing resources in space, created a space-bound civilization to do some of the economic things that we've been talking about tonight. Pete is about to speak at a major space conference in Houston, and Conrad loved to ride his motorbike, big chopper. I think it may even have been a Harley. He's out with some friends. He takes a curve a little too fast. He skids, and he falls over on the road. He gets up, and his friends say, that was a pretty bad spill. You should go to the hospital. And he's fine. He's got some scrapes, and nothing is wrong with him. He goes to the hospital. He never comes out.
So, I don't need more bodies. I'm sure you're going to come up with a lot of
I've got more.
Yeah, I'm sure
including people stashed behind fences, people assassinated in a roadside rest in Maryland.
So you're thinking this is so serious that NASA has had people...
I didn't say NASA. No, these are NASA people.
All right.
So far above NASA.
This, yes, the shadow government.
Whoever the controllers use to keep people in line. I mean, remember, the freakout was that Snowden was a contractor of a contractor. Right. And it's obvious to me that he had careful help. He did not do this on his own. I've got evidence that this was actually planned. And he did not wind up in Russia by accident. That's part of the plan. It's where the guys that would get rid of him, the reason he doesn't come back and do, like Ellsberg, they're going to kill him. Look what they did to Hastings. Michael Hastings, the journalist who was killed.
Right, I know you can keep rattling them off, but...
I can keep going because it's the truth and we need to look it right in the face, and that answers the question, why don't we have whistleblowers who simply cheerfully talk about what's really on the moon and Mars? Now, what I think they're doing on this mission to the moon, I think they've set this up either for the most amazing revelation that will be unstoppable, or they've set themselves up to really check this out so they can make the decision if they're going to release something.
All right, here's a question for you, Richard. After all the missions there have been to Mars and the moon, manned and unmanned, why do you think they would pick this mission to...
You're going to love this answer.
I hope so.
Are you ready?
Yeah, oh yes.
Because Barack Hussein Obama is president. He is the guy.
You're right. I kind of like the answer.
guy like a hawk. Back when he was just a twinkle in the eye of the pollsters, when he was at 20% in the polls in 2007, I predicted he was going to win the presidency, and I was so certain based on my data, I made a bet with George. And my bet with George was that if I won, meaning the president was elected, I would get to host Coast all by myself, pick my own, guests, do an entire 4-hour show on whatever I chose, and I've got that in the bank. I have not played that card because it hasn't been time.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. And hold on for a moment.
Well, George is an honorable man.
Take a break here. And then, I do want to go to the next photograph. The next photograph is the launch with the frog. And I actually don't know the whole story. I've seen pictures, but it's awesome. So we'll do that when we come back. From the high desert, this is Dark Matter. Those numbers. We are going to open lines. Richard is going to take questions from listeners. Coming up, I want to direct your attention to the next photograph. What number would this be, Richard? Richard's not there. Did we lose Richard? Apparently. We must have lost Richard. Okay, well, they'll get him back on the line. I want to know about this frog. Now, what if this frog was photoshopped?
Exactly. We're going to get into exactly all that.
There you are. You don't think it was photoshopped, do you?
I don't know. I have been to the Cape a million times. And
okay, you've got another radio behind you there, Richard.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have a weird delay on Sirius. I don't know why.
It's a satellite delay. Don't worry about it. Just turn off the radio.
Oh, okay.
Jeez, why do I have to tell Richard Hoagland to turn off the radio?
We made news tonight.
Oh?
Yeah, the reason I wanted this up there is because given the implications of this mission, I thought it was very bizarre that out of all the NASA missions that I have covered over decades, I mean, I've been at the Cape for launches, I've been at the pads, I've seen where the cameras are. Do you know that Florida is a swamp? Do you know what swamps have in them overwhelmingly in abundance?
A lot of frogs?
Lots of insects. Tons of insects. You can't stand there without being bitten to death and eaten to death by every creepy, crawly creature you can imagine.
Oh, I know.
So there's zillions of frogs eating all the little insects that would try to eat you. This, in the entire history of the space program, this is the first time we have ever seen a frog jumping away from a launch pad camera. And we got zillions of cameras and millions of feet of film, right?
Yeah.
Now it's all electronic. So, Hoagland with his conspiratorial turn of mind when it comes to NASA, knows that they are into symbolism and ritual and secret messaging and all that.
So
says,
the frog is a symbol.
Says, is the frog potentially a message about this mission? So I thought, and again, I'm totally speculating.
No, I've got it for you, Richard. Jumping off point.
That's one really good one. Mine was a little more pointed.
Okay.
If all we talked about tonight and all your religious implications and all the extraordinary rent of civilization that you believe would happen if we were to confirm this information that we're not alone and we build all this stuff.
Richard, stop. Don't put that on me. Don't put that on me. I'm just saying it is something that has to be considered.
Okay,
I'm not saying the world would go nuts. In fact, I even said maybe there ought to be another Brookings.
All right.
Okay?
Right.
So I'm just saying it's got to be considered.
No, I want to be absolutely straight down the middle on this.
Good.
But if this has huge game-changing implications, should we put it that way?
Which number picture is the frog?
Number 5.
5. All right, folks. Go to artbell.com.
Latin frog.
And go to picture number 5. It is a pretty cool picture, actually.
Yeah.
It's a frog. Right in the middle of the launch, here is this airborne frog.
Well, when the Minotaur rockets lighted up, obviously, if it's a real picture, he jumped, freaked out. How would you like to have your quiet lily pad disturbed by a mission of the moon.
Using hyperdimensional measuring techniques, Richard, how far is this frog from the camera?
Actually, that's a very good question. There's a lot of blogs and websites that have actually been working this out, and they think he may have been far enough away to survive the launch. In other words, he's much closer to the camera than he is to the launch pad.
Well,
and
sure.
they used angles and geometry and trig and all that. My question is, NASA made a big deal about this. Whenever NASA makes a big deal about anything, I get very curious. And I ask myself, what is the subliminal subtext? What's the real message? And my speculation was, symbolically, out of the frying pan into the fire.
To the fire. Oh, Richard, I love you. Okay.
Love you too, Art.
Or a jumping off point, or...
Yeah, but I really like yours because it goes with number 6. Let's cut to photograph number 6.
Oh, good. We need to make it through these.
Yep, we will. We've got just enough time to do this. Number 6.
Isn't it wonderful? Have you noticed, by the way, with extraterrestrial radio, you actually have time to have a conversation?
I've noticed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lunar Laser Communications Demonstration.
Okay. We currently communicate with spacecraft all over the solar system. When I say we, I mean NASA and the Russians and the Japanese and all that, by means of radio.
Right.
It's very, very high frequency radio. It's called S-band and X-band. It's
Right.
in the gigahertz range, but it's basically radio.
Right.
Radio is limited when you want to really send a lot of information down a pipeline to Earth, especially across millions and millions and millions of miles.
It can also be eavesdropped on.
So you got to stop reading my mind, Mr. Bell. It really, So it has been discussed for literally since Surveyor. They did a laser experiment 40 some years ago, on Surveyor, where they shone laser beams up of the Surveyor spacecraft, and they used the TV cameras to actually see the little tiny spot beams on the night side of the Earth.
Right.
As a prelude to someday using laser communication. Now, why would lasers be a really big step forward? Because, as everybody now knows, watch any commercials, because all of our telephone calls, even this phone call, is sent at some point via laser through fiber optics. They can hold billions and billions of telephone calls on a laser beam.
Yes.
Or you can send zillions of photographs, high definition, 3D, holograms, you name it. You've got the bandwidth using lasers that you don't.
All of that, and I can't get a good, clean phone connection with you.
Exactly. But we don't know about lasers here in New Mexico. Anyway, so on of all missions, what do they put this super-duper expensive, complicated, and really snazzy laser communication system on? Of all the missions we've ever sent anywhere in the solar system for the last 50 years, this mission. Now, in honest truth, the 3 instruments that they're going to be publicly using to take data on lunar dust and the atmosphere basically have minuscule bandwidth requirements. It doesn't take a lot of bandwidth to send bar graphs or squiggly lines, right?
Right.
So they've got a super communication system which could send, the Library of Congress in an hour, and they got nothing to put on that end. Except, this goes back to my friend who emailed me a few days ago, they've got these 2 weird horn-shaped things on the top of the spacecraft, which I finally tracked down. And the engineering guys say those are what are called star tracker cameras. Cameras. This spacecraft, not advertised to anybody unless you dig, are carrying 2 cameras. And if you look at the size of those light baffles,
Right.
they appear to be really super-duper cameras.
All right, so let me jump ahead. And
Go ahead,
we're going to
read my mind now.
We're going to take the pictures with these secret cameras. We're going to beam it back to Earth, not using radio that can be intercepted, but lasers that cannot. And then we're going to decide whether we want to tell the world what we just found.
Mr. Bell, you go to the head of the class.
Well,
That's the thing
you know what, Richard? Nobody more than me hopes that you're right. I really, honest to God, I hope you're right, Richard.
Well, the frog in the pond is, are they going to decide to tell us or not? Oh, and I got one little cutie. I've been looking at the orbit. I do orbits. I look at spacecraft. I look at coverage. I look at geometry. This darn thing is going to go to the moon. It's taking a month to get there, which gives you time to check out instruments, right?
Sure.
There's nothing else to do. You turn them on. You point them at they've got a solar telescope that's going to be looking at the sun so they can see if this dust that they think is what's causing the light above the horizon is due to the blockage of dust. You can do that anywhere between here and the moon. You don't have to be in lunar orbit to look at the sun and see if the damn thing is working. The same with the UVS spectrometer and the same with the particle detector. They're going to spend a month in high lunar orbit checking out the instruments before they lower the orbit to where they actually begin to officially do science. And I think that month is a license to find out all kinds of cool things and then decide whether you're going to tell anybody. They did the same thing when Malin sent the first camera to Mars on Mars Surveyor.
Right.
They had a block of period called checkout, and an academic, Stan McDaniel at Sonoma State University, wrote a scathing indictment of the fact that their reasoning made zero logical sense from a scientific perspective, from a mission perspective, from an economic perspective, from an operations perspective, and he basically said, these guys are going to use this time to photograph Sidonia secretly and decide what's there and if they're going to tell anybody. Because the press doesn't care about checkout. They only get interested vaguely when the actual mission is supposed to begin. So if you want to do something in public but in secret, you simply say, oh, we're going to just be doing engineering checkouts, and no one in Washington is going to give a damn.
Maybe. I hope you're right. Ms. Mag says, on the frog, Richard, it's just a giant leap for frog kind. Sorry. Couldn't resist. It is a hell of a picture, though. I'll give you that. And are we almost through the pictures? Because I want to get phones going here.
Well, I want to go to number 7.
All right.
Then we can go through these quickly because there's going to be zero controversy, I hope. When one is talking to Art, one never knows, but there should be zero controversy. Go to 7.
I'm there.
All right, this is a beautiful mosaic shot with the onboard camera of our little Curiosity 1-ton nuclear-powered rover loaded for bear.
It is gorgeous.
And it's got all kinds of really cool instrumentation. Everything you ever wanted to know about Mars environment, or Mars atmosphere, or surface composition, or the ruins of an ancient civilization, this robot can tell us. And what it's been doing for the last year, since August 6th, 2012.
It looks like it's sitting on somebody's old terrace. How's that for?
Well, it is sitting on a bunch of flagstones. Very good.
That's what I said, terrace.
For the lowest area of the crater it could reach in the last year. It's going to go to the mountain, in the next year. But they sent it to the lowest place because that's, of course, as you're going to see when you read Part 1 and Part 2 of my Curiosity expose on enterprisemission.com,
right,
called It Only Takes One White Crow. You know this old Apache saying, right?
Not really.
It only takes one white crow to prove all crows aren't black. Think about it. If we're proposing that there's an ET civilization all over the solar system that still have zillions and zillions of things in various states of ruin,
right,
all we got to do is find one, just one, to prove.
Yeah, and Mars does seem a logical place to me. That there once was a civilization. After all, it had an atmosphere. It had a lot of stuff we don't know about that got wiped out. So, yeah, Mars is.
Well, the difference between Mars and the Moon is, on the Moon, you need a high technology to live. It's kind of like the
Well, you need a dome.
Well, yeah, you need a dome to keep the air in. And you only build those by having high technology, a la Kaku and Kardashev. A really high technology can
Type
do...
2, Type 3.
Exactly. Well, I'm just restricting my projections to type 2, because type 2, by the way, we're not going to go to 1. We're going to leap to 2. If any of this comes out, we leap to 2 immediately.
Okay.
And we'll get to that later on, just more questions. We got, what, an hour? No, half an hour.
Oh, no, we've got an hour and a half.
Okay, but I mean until we want to get to questions.
Oh, any minute now. So hurry.
Thanks. So anyway, this thing is, prowling around on those wonderful wheels. It weighs 1 ton. It's got 17 cameras alone on this thing. Black and white.
It is beautiful. It's a beautiful
machine. And it's nuclear powered. Do you know the Voyagers are nuclear powered, and the Voyager 1 just penetrated into interstellar space the last year or so, and it's 30-some years en route? Do you know what the projections for the lifetime of the power supply in Curiosity could be if they can keep the thing just going?
I'd like to know. What are they?
Over 100 years.
Wow.
And remember, Spirit and Opportunity are going strong after 7 or 8 years, or at least Opportunity is, and they were projected to have lifetimes of 90 days.
Well, credit where credit is due, Richard. They really know how to build these things. And getting this down to the surface was amazing.
Okay, so they got down to the surface in this miracle sky crane landing on the early dawn of August 6th.
Right.
I did a live show with George narrating everything all the way down the surface.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Absolutely amazing. So then let's go to photograph number 8.
Okay. I like it. Let's go to 8. And I presume a lot of people are following with us. By the way, things are crashing. My little message wormhole has just been down about 10 times. Anyway, okay, here we are on 8, and right away I kind of don't like it.
Okay.
What am I looking at?
Exactly, what are you looking at?
Well, that's why I don't like it, Richard. I can't tell.
You can't tell. It's not a rock. Rocks aren't shiny blue.
No.
They don't have cylinders coming out of them looking like pipes. They don't have copper-colored flanges on the ends of some of the cylinders.
Well, I don't know. There might be blue rocks on Mars. White, right?
Yeah, white. That have specular metallic sheen reflections on the side facing the sun and the camera.
I do see that, yes.
That's a piece of junk. It's a piece of mangled, battered machinery that, by the way, was uncovered by the rocket blast of the Sky Crane descent rockets as Curiosity landed.
How can you not know that it's part of the landing apparatus?
Absolutely not. No, it's not. That's
how do you know that?
Because there's nothing like that on the spacecraft, and it didn't. The Sky Crane when it left, the way the entry happened is you had a big heat shield. Thing zaps into Mars atmosphere at 13,000 miles an hour. Takes 7 screaming minutes to go from the stratosphere all the way to the surface. The last few thousand feet it is lowered on a device called a Sky Crane, which basically was a rocket-powered helicopter kind of craft with 4 sets of rockets. As it's hovering on the rockets, like an old 1950s sci-fi movie, it lowers Curiosity on nylon ropes to the surface. The computer then senses the lack of weight when the wheels touch the ground. The Sky Crane cuts with squibs the nylon ropes, and the Sky Crane dashes off into the atmosphere and lands a couple of miles away, over the hill.
I saw the simulation, and what I'm asking is, how do you know that some little piece of something didn't break off? There'd be no way to not know that.
This is not little. This is about the size of a telephone. One of those old-fashioned rotary phones.
Right.
It looks to me like a pump. It looks like a pump. Now, remember, there's an old engineering axiom, form follows function. If you have to build a device to pump fluids, be it on Mars, on the Moon, on Alpha Centauri, wherever, it's got to kind of look very similar to anything you'd build on Earth, because it's got to have a way to pump fluids, and fluids have a certain Reynolds number and a certain pressure and a certain flow rate and all that. So a device to pump fluids will kind of look like a device to pump fluids regardless of the culture. This looks like an old pump.
I can't go there with you, Richard. I'm sorry. I see it, and it does look weird, and blue is weird, and that's about as far as I can go.
Okay, well then let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Number 9.
Number 9. Takes me a second. Bear with me. Number 9. Okay, what are we looking at with number 9?
After they landed, they spent about 2 months trekking on the wheels east to a place called Glen Elg. And on the way, they took lots and lots and lots of pictures. This was one of the pictures.
What is
about 2 months trekking on the wheels east to a place called Glen Elg. And on the way, they took lots and lots and lots of pictures. This was one of the pictures.
What is that?
Exactly. What is that? It's not a rock. How do we know?
Now that one.
It's too damn symmetrical.
Yeah, that one is way too symmetrical. That really.
And it's got a pipe.
And it's shiny too. And it's shiny.
It's got a pipe sticking out of it right toward the camera.
All right, I see it. All right, folks. If you haven't looked at anything else, you need to go to artbell.com. And this is, I'm sorry, what, number 10? 9.
Number 9.
Number 9. Picture number 9. What in the hell is this?
See, you can't ascribe what these things are because it's...
I see the pipe, Richard. I see the pipe.
Yeah. And it looks like it's old corroded metal, oxidized.
Right. My God, I just made it bigger. What is that? That is not natural.
Not a rock.
There's no way that's natural.
It only takes one white crow. Art, you have just officially confirmed the presence of an ancient technological civilization on Mars.
Have I really done that?
Hundreds. I've got so many damn images. I've been spending months trying to write part 2 of the One White Crow series because I've got too many examples, and I'm trying to distill the best context.
All right, this is undeniable in the sense that there's no way this is natural. Picture number 9, there's no way it's natural. The only thing I can do is say, Richard, are you sure this was not somehow from our spacecraft or previous spacecrafts or whatever?
Well, for one thing, what are the odds that previous missions will be able to land on a planet with a surface area equivalent to all the continents on Earth within a couple hundred feet of the one that came after? Second, we've never been to the Gale Crater. It's never been targeted.
Yeah, this one is suspicious.
It's incredibly suspicious. Remember, it only takes one white crow to prove all crows aren't black.
Yep.
Moving on, let's go to number 10.
Boy, I really like number 9, Richard. Do I have to leave?
You can look at it.
Wow. Number 9 is a wow. To me, that's a wow. Maybe some other people looking at it out there will have something else to say, but to me, that is wow. You don't wow me frequently, but you did with that. All right, here we are at number 10, for the sake of hurrying along here, and we have a...
well, to be neutral, I'm calling it a shattered sphere. It's bluish. It's round.
Sure, yes. Are you sure that these colors we're seeing...
Oh, the colors are absolutely accurate. Nope, they're absolutely accurate.
You're sure?
Unequivocally sure. See, what you do is you go to the original, when I post part 2, which has these and in better, bigger format, and many more, that's what's taken so long. I'm posting links back to the original NASA data archives at JPL. Every frame has a frame number. They've been posting all these images. The inside leakers have been leaking all the good stuff, and they know nothing will happen unless an official at NASA says these are artificial.
All right.
We live in a culture. This is how I know that we are on the cusp of something huge. It's been
This is good. This is good, Richard. Number 9 is better, but this is good. All right, listen.
Now,
I'm going to instruct them to begin. Go ahead, open up the lines, and begin to get some calls for Richard, please. You can start now, because we're going to do that shortly, Richard. We really got to. You got me with number 9, buddy.
It only took us 3 hours, 27 minutes, and 10 seconds.
Well, you didn't show me number 9 that long ago, so...
Yeah. No, look, the way I like to do things is you build slowly. Building a case is like a lawyer. You have to lay foundation. You have to get people used to the idea, and a lot of our audience has never heard any of this stuff, and they're obviously thinking you've got this lunatic who thinks, even though I work for NASA and Cronkite, that, there's stuff out there and people out there and all this, and of course we know that's not true. Well, it only takes one white crow to change the paradigm. And I've given you now 3 objects, 2 out of 3 you really can't explain as rocks.
Number 9 got me. I know of no way to explain number 9.
It's the simple.
Yes, yeah. On that note, hold on, Rich. Hold on. We're really going to go to the phones. No joke.
Go phone.
So, our phone number here at Dark Matter is 855-REAL-UFO. It's easy. 1-855-REAL-UFO or 1-855-732-5836. We are now officially taking calls. So, be my guest. There really is a lot to talk about. All I ask is if you want to disagree, be polite. Maybe a bit strident, as I have been, but be polite. All right? Richard C. Hoagland is my guest. It's been one whale of a night, and I bet it's going to get even better. Dark Matter in the nighttime, coming to you from the high desert and the great American Southwest. That one. Hi, everybody. That's Ross Mitchell, of course. Number 9 shares it for me. There's no question about that. If you haven't seen it, go to artbell.com. These are the photographs we've been talking about. Number 9 is on Mars. And if number 9 is a rock, then I'll eat my phone. It's a big phone, too. They call it a grand dream. I wouldn't want to have to eat it. Number 9's a clincher. All right, we're going to begin taking calls. No telling what's ahead, but I hope you'll be civil. I know Richard has a lot of detractors and a lot of supporters, but I want you to be civil. That's very important. And
I have to tell you, Art, I have to tell you one thing.
Yeah.
Robin is not happy with our conversation. She thinks it's for fighting because I sound strained and all this. And I said, I'm just passionate, and I love a good argument when the opponent has really good points and questions.
Mm-hmm. No, Robin, this is not a fight. This is the way Richard and I interact.
It's called radio for a reason.
Yeah, okay, here we go. You're on Dark Matter with Richard C. Hoagland. Hello.
Art Bell, this is truly an honor. How are you, sir?
That would be Roswell's. Thank you.
Hey, how many years ago was it that the Vatican actually came out and said the question, if there is life out there, they are our brothers?
And that is not a metaphor. They mean it absolutely 100% for real.
How long ago was it?
2 years.
2 years. Okay.
There's been a progression. Look, everybody's been talking, the Stephen Bassett's disclosure, the D word.
Right.
I have been seeing so many trend curves pointing us in the direction of the ultimate disclosure that we're so close now. If you look at these as political trend curves, I would say we're within a couple of years, maybe sooner, then this stuff is officially acknowledged in some way which is non-threatening. That's why I think the laser system on Laddie and the secret cameras is, you really nailed it on.
Okay.
They want to look before they leap. They have to.
Okay.
To follow up another question, am I the only one that, when I read the book of Genesis, saw it right there in black and white? They're pretty much admitting it. When God says, we will make man in our likeness. Well, he was the only one at the time. Who was he talking to? Because that was before Adam and Eve.
Exactly.
There you go. All right. Fair enough. And maybe if they were to redo Brookings, we'd come up with a whole different answer. Let's go here, Dark Matter. You're on the air with Richard Hoagland.
Yeah, hey Richard. I'm a supporter of your premise here, but I was wondering when you use the term civilization, what if they just uncovered like a small complex of structures, like an outpost? Would you say that's a civilization or?
Well, you've got to look at all the missions we've sent, the orbital missions, the landed missions. There's stuff on every mission that's all over Mars. Just thinking of Mars as one place. When you look at all the NASA spacecraft over the last 30, 40 years, which includes, the mission to Mercury, Messenger, the mission to Saturn, Cassini, the Galileo missions to Jupiter, the mission like Voyager to the outer planets, Uranus and Neptune, there's artificial stuff that I can build the case for all over the solar system. In which case, we're talking about living. Do you remember that movie, Art, that Katharine Hepburn starred in called Love Among the Ruins?
Not offhand.
We are living amid the ruins, I believe, of a Type 2 civilization. And we're the dim descendants, 15 million generations removed, of something extraordinary. And when Genesis talks about the fall, frankly, I think this is what it's really referring to. Because ultimately, when you lose your history, you lose 99.999% of everybody, and you lose planets in the process of a huge interplanetary war. The survivors are going to cling to scraps of information. They're going to mythologize them. They're going to put them on pedestals. They're going to make them sacred. And the things that used to be real and practical will be looked at as metaphors or as examples of something else. I think we're living, with genuine, homage to Michio and to Kardashev before him, amid the ruins of an extraordinary Type 2 civilization. And it's now almost time to tell people who we really are.
Okay. Caller, anything else?
No, that's kind of what I was thinking. I think that the quote-unquote alien civilization is what we call our civilization now. And relics or artifacts in the solar system may be just remnants of their journey here.
Well, when I finally get to do the book on all this, which is going to be called The Heritage of Mars, Remembering Forever, I have some stunning genetic data to put in to corroborate with mainstream papers, which to me, and probably to any objective observer, we're going to find out, proves that the human race, certainly one faction of us, originally lived on Mars. I can prove that scientifically.
Richard, have you ever heard of junk DNA?
Yeah, of course.
What if it's not junk?
Exactly. But our evidence is not having to do with the junk DNA. It has to do with something even more interesting that proves a fraction of the current human, and this is mainstream studies. And the folks doing the studies, which have gone back to the 50s, they didn't know what they got. So again, they just published it, not knowing they should have kept it secret. And the cover-up crowd, who are actually not very smart, they're basically operating on some kind of manual. They let lots of stuff through either by design, the long education process that Brookings called for, where you turn up the water slowly on our poor little frog, or it's because they simply don't know what to keep secret because they don't know any more than we do, and they don't know the key things that will allow someone to put the puzzle together and make a big picture.
Well, either that or you've really annoyed them, Richard, and they're trying to drive you completely insane. You're on the air with Richard C. Hoagland on Dark Matter. Hello.
Hello, Art. Super mega Rockwell to you both.
Thank you.
Hey, I got two quick questions one for Art and one for Richard. The other night I was listening to Dr. Greer, and he's talking about all the data that nobody has access to, such as presidents, congressmen, leaders.
Right.
Who is guarding this data? Is this a modern-day version of the Templars, or what is it?
That's a better question for Richard. Who's guarding the data? Yeah.
I think you put your finger on it. I think these are ancient secret societies. We may not actually know the names, because I always tend to think that everybody who blames the Illuminati and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, look, this suppression, this control is at such a high level that you don't even know the names of the groups that they're part of. Everything else is kind of diversion out front, like those annual meetings of the Bilderbergers. That's not
right.
where this really originates. So, yes, I think you have secret societies. I think one of them traces itself all the way back to ancient Egypt, called the Shemsu-Hor, or the Followers of Horus. And their task, when you actually read the ancient Egyptian, their task is to preserve the fragments of the first time and to restore civilization from before a catastrophe.
All right, caller, you're even noisier than Richard, so let's have the other question quickly.
Yeah, quick question for Richard. I want to get caught up on everything you guys have been talking about tonight, because I've been kind of out of the loop for a while. Where can I catch up to, find more of these photos and stuff like that? Cause
that's a fair question. All right, Richard.
EnterpriseVision.com. I've got part one of an extraordinarily deep expose on curiosity, the real secret mission of curiosity. The title is One White Crow, and part two will be up in a few days as soon as I figure out what data I have to eliminate to fit within certain space limits.
Well, I love number 9, Richard. God, I love it. It's just great. It's your white bird.
The more you look, the more you see, right?
It's your white bird.
And there's more. Wait till you see what I'm going to have in part two on the Enterprise mission.
Dark Matter, it's your turn with Richard. Hello. Going once.
are you there, Art?
I'm here.
Roswell's ticket.
Oh, you're breaking up on us.
Terrible phone.
I'm sorry. There was a probe sent to Mars a few years back that was apparently destroyed by a laser from Mars. Did that happen?
No. The probe you're talking about is a Mars observer. They were putting it into orbit, and they suddenly lost communication. And of course, I was on CNN with a press conference that very afternoon, and I said on the record that this is the way you take the mission black. And with the sophistication of computers, even back in the early 90s, what used to take hundreds of people sitting in a mission control, you could run with 5 guys in a basement and a few laptops. So I always felt Mars Observer disappeared so that, again, they could look at what they were going to see and make the political decision, do we tell them or do we wait?
Okay, I've got a question, Richard.
Okay.
Look, it's about number 9.
Yep.
Number 9 is not a natural object. Is it possible that number 9 could be something? I mean, the Russians launched a lot of stuff that crashed on Mars, right?
No.
Well,
They had 2 missions that landed. They had 3 missions that disappeared. They had one that landed, and for a few seconds, like maybe 10 seconds after landing, it was transmitting, and then it stopped. And they think that maybe the high winds, took the parachute and turned it over, so it killed it.
Right.
But you're talking about, my dear friend, you're grasping at straws. There is no way statistically that we could have landed. Plus, those landing coordinates were nowhere near Gale Crater from the trajectory analysis. That is not an answer. I actually have a very good friend who was involved in the early space program from the...
I'm grasping at pipes, Richard.
Anyway, my friend Don used to work on all this stuff. He worked at Rocketdyne. He was involved with Mercury and Apollo and Gemini and Shuttle. He actually, with a straight face, said to me, this has got to be Russian, the German engineering from when the Germans secretly went to Mars. And I said to him the same thing I'm telling you.
The stretch
No.
too.
Because statistically, there is no possible way that we'd wind up in the same place on a planet with a continental area bigger than the Earth.
Well, it's not a natural object, so I've got to grasp at something.
And there's more than one. When you see
Dark matter, you're on the air with Richard Hoagland.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, hello.
Yes. Oh, very nice. Finally, I'm so happy to be on. It's glad to hear you back, Art.
Thank you.
I guess my question for Richard is, if he can talk about, and Richard, I'm a big fan of yours too, at Mike Bars. I love all your work. What is the Vatican looking at there at Mount Graham Observatory?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll take my question off the air. Thank you very much.
That would be your answer, and we'll give it to you all right. Yes, the Vatican has an observatory. They certainly do. A lot of people don't know that. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, they have two. The traditional observatory for the Vatican is at Castel Gandolfo. It's just south of Rome. It's where the Pope spends. It's kind of his summer home. It's also a full-fledged working professional observatory. And we found out a couple of years ago, through a very strange set of circumstances, when the Vatican officially announced that ETs could be our brothers, which I looked at as part of this slow disclosure process in slow motion.
I think that's fair, too.
We found out that at Castel Gandolfo, in addition to the telescopes and the observatory domes and all that, the Pope has his own meteorite collection.
Wow.
Now, what the hell does the Pope, have a meteorite collection? Unless he knows, because of ancient sacred documents, remember there's always been the rumors of what's in the Vatican archives underneath Rome. When the Library of Alexandria burned.
You're talking about the current Pope, right?
Every Pope.
Every Pope?
Every Pope. It's part of the church. It's the Pope. It's not any given Pope. It's the papacy has a meteorite collection. And there's a custodian. There's a Jesuit priest who's in charge, who was actually giving press conferences and interviews right after the announcement by the what's his name in London that ETs could be our brothers. When I found out that the papacy has an official meteorite collection, that to me was a ding 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 ding, because that's part of the trail of evidence. Remember, our model is a la the late Dr. Tom Van Flandern, which is a shame he's not around so you can talk to him these days about all this. His model was there used to be another planet between Earth and Jupiter.
I recall. Yeah.
Of which Mars was a moon, a satellite. And it somehow blew up. And the meteorites and all the junk that's coursing around the sun now is basically the shrapnel from that extraordinary seminal event in solar system history. And the Pope has his own collection of those pieces. Just connect it up.
Right. Dark Matter, you're on the air with Richard C. Hoagland.
Don't we wish that Malachi Martin was still with us?
Oh, yes.
Hello?
Are you there? Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Hey, it's great to talk to you guys. I just wanted to ask Richard about the Dark Knight satellite. I mean, is that thing real? I can't find any information on it. I mean, what the heck is it?
Okay, what he's talking about, Art, is in the 1950s, the government, and NASA didn't exist then, of course, it's before 58, announced, this is before the launch of Sputnik and before the launch of Explorer 1, our own first satellite. There was some object in polar orbit that they called the Dark Knight. And there were a couple of news stories, including in the Washington Post. I've got the actual stories. And then all references and knowledge disappeared. Now you know as much as I do.
Okay. Fascinating. That's something to look into, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Hi there. Dark Matter, you're on with Richard C. Hoagland.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
Minnie Roswell from up in Victoria, British Columbia. My question for your guest, it actually applies to last night's guest as well, but it's this. All the information that he's presenting, has it been offered up for scientific peer review? And if so, where would we
be able to read the reports of those reviews, and I'll take my answer off air. Thank you.
Okay, Richard, any peer review of number 9?
No.
Why not?
Exactly, why not? For a mission which is named Curiosity,
Right.
number 9 is only one of dozens and dozens and dozens of objects. I mean, poor Keith this afternoon, he said, "Stop!" when I got to my 13th image. Because I couldn't get loading.
Yeah, I get it.
So, no, there will not be peer review, because peer review is an exquisite censoring system.
Yeah, but you can't have that many number 9s. This is too good.
Oh, we got more. Wait till you see. There are more number 9s for you.
Really?
Okay, yes.
All right, here's a number 8 for you. You're on the air with Richard C. Hoagland. Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Am I on?
You are on, yes.
I don't believe it. I have a question about...
You have a really good phone line.
Thank you. I'm really glad you're back, Art. I spent
Thank you.
at least 3 days getting this X thing together for my 97-year young mother to listen to you because she's your greatest fan.
Oh, what's her name?
Her name is Annette,
Annette, good evening.
and she will be listening to this. There's a delay. I'm so shocked I'm on. But I do have a question. Is it possible, along with these other questions, the British had a ship that went up and it crashed called the Beagle?
Yep.
Could this be some debris possibly from the Beagle?
We know where Beagle landed, and it's nowhere near Gale Crater.
Okay.
It's actually photographed from orbit, from Mars orbit, with the high-rise camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter spacecraft, the smash of debris of poor little Beagle as it hit the ground.
Young lady, listen, obviously you've seen number 9, right?
Yes.
And that's where we're going to have to leave it for tonight. Come back to hear the rest of that tomorrow night in its finale. Till then, make sure you do like, share, and subscribe. Be kind to one another. And, of course, release the Krakens. As we march along this overnight and every overnight here from day one. Till then, have a great night's sleep. We'll see you tomorrow.